The same year you become chancellor, by 1972, Max Roach joins the faculty and the Black Musicians Conference is formed. Is there any connection between your being in a position of authority here and the development of the Black Musicians Program?
I do think that jazz is our only true American art form. And some people approached me with a package. And that package was Max Roach, Archie Shepp, Nelson Stevens, Paul Carter Harrison, and Roberta Flack. So what we did is we said, okay, we talked to the music department. And the music department says, bringing in this group was unprecedented. And I got a lot of criticism from people saying, well, there's the academic component.
They're not credentialed.
So yeah. But we did anyway, because in music, it's kind of hard to have your whole department with PhDs in musicology or something.
Especially jazz.
Yeah. And so we did, and I think it was one of the best things we ever did. It's really now evolved into this being the center for the study. I mean the true study and teaching of that particular art. Before, our music department was a good one, but it wasn't on the map. It didn't have anything in particular that set it aside. Now we do have something that sets us aside.
The students were wanting to have some jazz because the faculty didn't want jazz. And I told them that I would take it and I would start a jazz program. I started the jazz ensemble, and a guy who was the head librarian, he was a clarinet player, and he was my ally. And the two of us started the program. The next year, in '73, Boyer took over the jazz history. That was the jazz program personnel, three of us, for a while. It took 9 years for us to get a major in jazz. 9 years, because we still had opposition to it. But it also had gained some kind of credibility. But the diehards put up a good fight. But after 9 years, we got a major in jazz.
That's huge.
I thought it was important enough music then it ought to be a part of the program.
All right. Good afternoon. All right, we'll do it one more time. Good afternoon. Beautiful. I'm Barbara Krauthammer, Dean of the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, and I'm really so delighted to welcome you to this celebration of the arts. I want to begin our program with this acknowledgement. The University of Massachusetts Amherst acknowledges that it was founded and built on the unceded homelands of the Pecumtuck Nation on the land of the Norituck community. We begin with gratitude for nearby waters and lands. We recognize these lands and waters as important relations with which we are all interconnected and depend upon to sustain life and well-being. The Pecumtuck had connections with these lands for millennia. Over 400 years of colonization, when Pecumtuck peoples were displaced, many then joined their Algonquin relatives to the east, south, west, and north. That includes Mashpee and Aquinnah Wampanoag, Nipmunk, Narragansett, Mohegan, Pequot, Mohican communities, and the Abenaki and other nations of the Wabanaki Confederacy. These Native peoples still maintain connections and relationships of care for these lands today. We also acknowledge that the University of Massachusetts Amherst is a land-grant university. As part of the Morrill Land Grant Act, portions of land from 84 Native nations west of the Mississippi were sold to provide the resources to found and build this university. So, as an active first step towards decolonization, we encourage you to learn more about the Native nations on whose homeland UMass Amherst now resides, and the indigenous homelands on which you live and work. We also invite you to deepen your relationship to these living lands and waters. Thank you. Now, as you came in today, many of you saw Renew, Reframe, Change, the improvised dance score that was performed when you arrived. So please now join me in thanking Thomas Vacanti, the director of our dance program, and the Improvisation and Movement Exploration class for their beautiful performance today. And then, as you entered the Frederick Tillis Performance Hall, Kinetic 45 was performing Blooming by Dr. Fred Tillis. So thank you to the wonderful performers in Kinetic 45, to Matthew Padula and the Jazz and African American Music Studies program led by Jeff Holmes for providing the ensemble, and to the Department of Music and Dance and their department chair, Salvatore Macchia. Thank you. So now I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge the reason that we're all here today. We're together today in one of the most iconic buildings on the UMass Amherst campus to dedicate it to Chancellor Randolph W. Bill Bromery, and the spaces within to Dr. Frederick C. Tillis, Laura Bailey and her family, and my predecessor and friend, Julie C. Hayes, and her late husband, Claude Bersano. These individuals have been instrumental to maintaining the vibrancy of the arts at UMass. And we gather today to acknowledge the importance and centrality of the arts to our campus community. UMass has been a leader in celebrating and advancing diversity in the arts. Our campus has long been the home to leading musicians and artists, including the internationally acclaimed musicians of color like Max Roach, Archie Shepp, and Dr. Frederick Tillis. We've hosted legendary Black authors like James Baldwin and Toni Morrison on campus. And we continue to support programming that honors the contributions of diverse groups of artists. Most recently, the University Museum of Contemporary Art's ongoing We Are for Freedoms exhibition was recently translated into Spanish, making it more accessible to Spanish-speaking students and to members of our wider community. With the university's core values of diversity and inclusion at heart, we believe that all individuals should have the opportunity to connect with the arts, whether studying in a class, attending a play, a concert, or an exhibit, whether performing as an actor, a dancer, or a musician, or making it all happen by being on a design, sound, or stage crew. And with that, I should pause and thank today's crew for organizing the event behind the scenes to make sure you can hear and see us. Arts are the technicolor thread that weave through the university's cultural fabric. They're fundamental to student life, informing educational and extracurricular experiences. The arts benefit not only the students who study in visual art, dance, theater, or music, but all UMass students. In fact, our entire campus and local community benefit from the arts at UMass Amherst. To see evidence of how art touches life in real time, all you have to do is walk through our campus center any day, and you'll hear someone playing the public piano that's been installed by the South Entrance. Sometimes the tune is a well-rehearsed sonata. Sometimes the tune is a song that you can faintly recognize as a childhood early piano song. But inevitably, the player is a student who walked by and felt compelled to make and share music. This is the joy that art brings to our lives. Beyond creating and sharing joy, though, the arts play a critical role in preparing our students for the future of work. Recent studies by the World Economic Forum and many studies and surveys of employers reveal that there is a consistent and urgent demand for young people to have skills that relate to innovation, creativity, imagination, and vision. These skills are critical in our time, a time when technology and artificial intelligence are increasingly dominating so many aspects of our lives. Competencies in science, technology, engineering, and math, what we routinely call STEM, are not enough to ensure individual success in the new landscape of work and not enough to ensure a vibrant, healthy society. There's growing recognition among industry leaders, and I would say more importantly, among leaders in education, that higher education must think in terms of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. This will ensure it's incumbent on us in higher education to ensure that the distinctive forms of inquiry, abstract observation, improvisation, and creative learning that are inherent in the arts remain a fundamental part of university education and university culture. At UMass Amherst, our students have the opportunity to excel in the arts and to explore the connections between the arts and other disciplines. Now, students can utilize our new state-of-the-art facilities and interact with faculty mentors, accomplished artists, composers, performers, and technicians in their own right. And our students have the opportunities to develop their own creative and technical expertise at the highest level. The studio and stage for so many students are the laboratories in which they experiment, improvise, and learn. And we at UMass Amherst are giving them the tools, the knowledge, and the inspiration to pursue their dreams and their careers at UMass and beyond. So in closing, I will say, arts give meaning to the things that we cannot immediately understand. The arts offer us pleasure, inspiration, solace, insight, and empathy. They give us antidotes to the isolation and polarization of contemporary life. The arts can reveal simple beauty and expose hard truths. Even, and sometimes especially, when art challenges us, it gives us the chance to find connection, community, and the common ground. So I thank you for joining us today for this celebration of the arts at UMass. And now I want to introduce, thank you. I now want to introduce our Chancellor, Chancellor Kumble Subbaswamy, or Swami as he's known, and you will hear that cry called out across campus as the students see him. Chancellor Subbaswamy became the 30th leader of the University of Massachusetts Amherst in 2012. He's a physicist by training and an elected fellow of the American Physical Society. He's spent almost his entire professional life at public research universities. As Chancellor, Swami is known for his pursuit of academic excellence, the promotion of research and outreach, and initiatives that are aimed at addressing campus climate, diversity, and culture. He has overseen the opening of new cutting-edge academic, student, and athletic facilities, including the new Student Union, the Business Innovation Hub at the Eisenberg School of Management, and the new Worcester Dining Commons. He has made sustainability, environmental sustainability, a campus priority. And he is focused on strengthening community relations, supporting local area communities, and finally, increasing access to the university's rich academic and research resources. He has also led our campus through the challenges of the past year and a half with his usual steady hand, grace under pressure, and a profound compassion for each other. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Subbaswamy.
Good afternoon. Barbara, thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you all for joining us as we celebrate the naming of the Randolph W. Bromery Center for the Arts. Chancellor Randolph W. Bill Bromery, a geologist by training, earned a bachelor's in mathematics from Howard University, a master's in geology from American University, a PhD in geology from Johns Hopkins University, and served as a Tuskegee Airman during the Second World War. So every time somebody gives me any compliments and I need to feel humble, I think about Dr. Bromery. Indeed. He came to UMass in 1967 as a professor of geology and rose quickly through the leadership ranks, serving as a department chair, vice chancellor for student affairs, and then leading the campus as chancellor from 1971 to 1979. So he rose from coming in 1967 as a professor within 4 years to becoming the chancellor of this university. His appointment as chancellor made him the second African American ever to lead a predominantly white campus and the first African American to lead UMass Amherst. During Chancellor Bromery's tenure, the nation was in political, social, and economic upheaval. The gains made by the civil rights movement of the 60s were being challenged. Watergate broke. College students across the country protested the Vietnam War, sometimes with deadly consequences. The economy went into a recession, and long lines formed at the gas stations as we experienced a global oil crisis. Chancellor Bromery also inherited a campus experiencing explosive growth. As the bulging baby boomer demographic chose a path to college, applications to the university grew from about 5,000 in 1959 to more than 20,000 10 years later. And enrollment nearly tripled in the decade leading up to 1972. Fueled by the unrest sweeping the nation, our expanding student body joined their peers on campuses across the country in demanding change. I can attest personally to this upheaval. In 1971, I boarded a plane for the first time in my life, traveling from my home in Bengaluru, India, to Indiana University to pursue a doctorate in physics. When I arrived in Bloomington, the campus was in the throes of unrest. Back here in Amherst, Chancellor Bromery noted, quote, "The long-standing elitist pattern of higher education is crumbling. Our goal is a more responsive and meaningful intellectual community," end quote. Chancellor Bromery worked to create that community. Under his leadership, the ratio of undergraduate men to women increased from 60 to 40 to 50-50. And from a total of 36 Black students on campus, he intensified recruitment and support of minority students, growing the Black student body to 1,000 during his tenure. And it was through his efforts that the university acquired the archives of both W.B. Du Bois and Horace Mann Bond, furthering our reputation as a leader in African American studies. But it was Chancellor Bromery's approach to the arts that most clearly defines his leadership and his legacy on this campus. After the Fine Arts Center opened in 1975, Dr. Fred Tillis became one of his earliest directors, and the two men shared a vision of the arts as fundamentally and necessarily inclusive, and the chancellor was not afraid to challenge the academic status quo to realize that vision. When the opportunity arose for the university to recruit innovative Black artists, including jazz drummer Max Roach, jazz saxophonist Archie Shepp, playwright Paul Carter Harrison, and the artists Nelson Stevens and Raymond Miles, Chancellor Bromery used his position to bring them to campus as faculty without regard to PhD credentials. While today recruiting an expert without consideration of a terminal degree is not at all unheard of, at the time it was controversial and Chancellor Bromery was criticized. Of course, like all the great visionaries, Chancellor Bromery and Dr. Tillis were right. Today, our jazz program is known nationally and internationally for its excellence, and the Fine Arts Center presents nearly 200 programs, engages with more than 70,000 people annually, all through a mission of inclusivity. Now, more than 40 years since Chancellor Bromery led the university, our nation once again finds itself in upheaval across political, social, and economic divides, not to mention racial divides. And as we witnessed earlier this summer with our own students, the target of anti-Black racist incidents, we're not immune from this polarization and divisiveness. With all of these challenges, our campus community could be tempted to lose its focus, but we must remember our guiding purpose, our promise to provide access to the transformative power of an education. In 1949, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, and I quote, "Of all the civil rights for which the world has struggled and fought for 5,000 years, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental. If a people has preserved this right, then no matter how far it goes astray, not matter how many mistakes it makes, in the long run, in the unfolding of generations, it is going to come back to the right," end quote. Focused on the right to learn, we must meet the challenges before us and continue our efforts, fulfilling our promise to teach, discover, and engage. Through Chancellor Bromery's enduring vision, this center serves as a beacon of hope for providing a sanctuary for inclusive, creative expression and exploration of the human condition. And just as Chancellor Bromery understood, in these shared, transcendent, aesthetic experiments, we find a powerful catalyst for personal and civic transformation. I would like to take a few minutes to acknowledge and thank Professor John H. Bracey, Jr. for the critical role he played in the events we celebrate today. It was Professor Bracey's idea to name the Fine Arts Center for Chancellor Bromery. And it was Professor Bracey who facilitated the process by reaching out to the Bromery family. As many of you know, John H. Bracey Jr. came to the university in 1972, early in Chancellor Bromery's tenure, during that transformative era for the campus. Professor Bracey was already nationally known scholar and activist when his friend, Equieme Michael Telwell, asked him to join the then nascent W.E.B. Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies. John agreed, and with that decision, he created a new trajectory for the university, for the emerging discipline of Afro-American studies, and for its next generation of scholars. As part of the 50th anniversary of the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies, we launched a fellowship in honor of Professor John Bracey. The John H. Bracey Jr. Fellowship Fund provides summer fellowship support for doctoral students in the department who have achieved candidacy and are engaged in research and writing their dissertations. It is a critical resource to foster the next generation of scholars dedicated to Black people in the Americas and the African diaspora. And in case you didn't get the idea, we are taking donations for the John H. Bracey Jr. Scholarship. As part of today's celebration, we're also announcing the University Black Presence Initiative. Created with direction from Professor Bracey and early collaboration with Dr. Esther Terry and Sidonio Ferreira, this project has been in development since 2020. It brings together voices and stories of Black faculty, students, and staff and alumni throughout our almost 160-year history and chronicles their contributions to our continued excellence. While Dr. Terry could not join us today, we thank her, Professor Bracey, Sid Ferreira, and the Black Presence Planning Committee for their dedication to this work. Today, we acknowledge Chancellor Bromery's immeasurable contributions and his commitment to expanding our understanding of what it means to learn, discover, and engage. And we are thrilled that Randolph W. Bromery Center for the Arts celebrates his legacy as it renews and replenishes the promise of our university. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and go UMass.
Thank you, Chancellor Subaswamy. Before we move on to our next speaker, I would like to introduce Matt Padula. I would like to introduce him, but I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. Matt is a senior who's majoring in jazz performance in the Department of Music and Dance, and he's going to perform a selection from Images of the Blue Earth by Dr. Frederick Tillis. So please join me with a warm welcome for Matt. Matt, thank you. Thank you. Wow. Our next speaker, Jamila Daria, is the director of the Bromery Art Center at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Jamila's experience with the Apollo Theatre Foundation, FIVA Productions, and her collaboration with London's South Bank Center created the foundation for her work here at UMass. Here, Jamila is focused on supporting the development of new work and partnering with world-class artists to inspire creative practice and arts-based research that reimagines how the arts are made and experienced in the 21st century. Please welcome Jamila Daria.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you for coming out. I know the weather predictions were kind of scary, so I'm so happy to see all your lovely faces out there for this very special day. This month, 46 years ago, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, led by Seiji Ozawa, performed the inaugural concert in this space, on this stage, marking a new era for UMass Amherst. There were 28 other performances during that first Fine Arts Center season, including an evening with Ella Fitzgerald, concerts by the London Symphony Orchestra, the Boston Pops, and Pete Seeger, as well as a Broadway production of Grease and dance performances by the Katherine Dunham Dance Company, the Alvin Ailey City Center Dance Theater, and Ballet Hispanico, to name a few. All powerhouse names, all season long, for the very expensive price of $3 to $5. Now that's what I call arts access. Birthed from a bold proposition first envisioned more than a decade earlier by a small but committed group of faculty and students, this building is more than a center for the arts. It symbolizes the campus's revolutionary posture to center the arts and arts education as a critical component to world-class public education. Today, countless studies have proven UMass right. We now know that increased access to the arts and involvement in arts education positively affect retention, student learning outcomes, and quality of life, not just for arts majors, but for all students. Since 1975, UMass students, no matter their background or economic standing, have been given the opportunity to be exposed to world-class art and direct access to the artistic masters of our time. Just yesterday, students sat with the multi-talented artist, choreographer, dancer, and theater director, Bill T. Jones, and learned about his process for developing his latest production, Afterwardness, an immersive dance theater work reflecting on the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and systematic racism. Last year, Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra taught a 6-part course for the UMass community on jazz as a democratizing force. And the year prior, my first season here, we opened with a weekend-long Arts and Ideas Festival on the issue of sustainability, helmed by composer Philip Glass. These days, having leading national and international artists integrated not only in campus life, but also in the classroom is commonplace. But that wasn't always the case. Dr. Bromery's impact on the arts at UMass go far beyond him just being chancellor when this building opened. His impact is rooted in his regard for and embrace of the artist as scholar. Perhaps as the son of a jazz musician, he recognized early on the intellectual rigor, intense discipline, and dedication to study required to master a form. Perhaps it was his own practice as a saxophonist that influenced his perspective. In any case, his decision to create space in the Academy for the Artists, to legitimize their practice and production as scholarship, and to rightfully acknowledge their roles as contributors to and advancers of society and new knowledge have been indelibly imprinted on this university. In 1973, when Bromery invited this package of faculty, Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly hit number 4 on the US pop charts. Max Roach had just released the debut album from his percussion supergroup M Boom, and Archie Shepp, a year prior, released his well-received studio album, Attica Blues. Bromery's embrace of actively touring well-known musicians was unheard of, and it worked. Bromery's revolutionary approach to expanding the faculty placed music education at UMass at the forefront of the national stage. The inclusion of these new professors expanded the range of perspectives in the music department, shifted curricular priorities, and created once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for our students, including one group of lucky undergraduates who got to shadow Max Roach on one of his European tours. While Bromery modernized faculty recruitment, Dr. Fred C. Tillis transformed arts on this campus. With an easy smile and a bold vision, Dr. Tillis meticulously dismantled destructive myths like the concept of high and low art, along with the academic barriers that for too long diminished and erased the cultural contributions of people of color and non-Western art forms. His achievements, Dr. Tillis's achievements, over his time here are many. As a senior administrator on campus, he moved dance from athletics to an academic department. Through his efforts to establish our jazz program, he made UMass Amherst one of the first major public universities to offer such a degree program. And his assertion of belonging and placehood soon allowed the university to attract scholars and writers like Mary Baraka, Janetta Cole, Pearl Primus, and Chinua Achebe, and others. As the director of the Fine Arts Center, Dr. Tillis helped start and advance some of the university's most successful arts initiatives, including New World Theater, Augustus Savage Gallery, the Asian Art and Culture Program, Bright Moments, Jazz in July, which he co-founded with Max Roach and Billy Taylor. Today, it is impossible to imagine UMass without the transformative influence of Bromery and Tillis. As a result of their efforts, UMass Amherst continues to be a national and global standard setter for inclusive arts programming, welcoming renowned and emerging artists of color, and supporting cutting-edge initiatives to present, preserve, and advance Western and non-Western art forms in every medium. As we look ahead at this center's future, We will continue to engage this long-standing and proud tradition of inviting leading artists from various disciplines to adopt UMass as their artistic laboratory. A wonderful example of this commitment is the University Museum of Contemporary Art's multi-year residency with Puerto Rico-based artists Jennifer Alora and Guillermo Calzadilla. Over the next 2 years, their research residency will focus on the study of select specimen in the natural history collection and culminate in a multimedia installation at the University Museum of Contemporary Art with new works produced. Through their time here on campus, they will participate in multidisciplinary public conversations relating to art, biology, and environmental studies, and directly engage with students on their development process. Through these residencies, we will continue to connect with artists and audiences far beyond the framework of performances and exhibitions, deepen and broaden learning experiences, and find new channels for the spirit of cross-disciplinary collaboration that animates UMass Amherst. 46 years ago, Kevin Roche's Grand Gateway opened to not only connect the campus, but also to signal the university's ambitious aspirations to move beyond its agricultural roots into an academic and cultural leader. Today, as the arts and the innovation happening within these walls, because of the arts and the innovation happening within these walls, the Bromery Center still stands both as a gateway and a reminder of the critical role of the arts in higher education. As we continue to challenge and broaden the ideas of what the art is and what the arts are and how the arts are studied, we expand our focus to move from STEM to STEAM. And as we celebrate the power of the arts to unite us through this space, UMass will carry the revolutionary ideas of Bromery and Tillis through modernity into a bright future.
Thank you, Jamila. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, Harley Erdman, Chair of the Department of Theater. Professor Erdman is a dramaturge, playwright, and scholar whose work focuses on adaptation and translation. His commissioned work as a translator of contemporary Latin American theater includes plays from Mexico, Nicaragua, and Chile. His book, Women Playwrights of Early Modern Spain, features his translations of 10 plays that have never before been translated into English. This book won the Josephine Roberts Award for the best scholarly edition in the field of early modern women and gender. Professor Erdman is also a winner of the Association for Hispanic Classic Theater's Translation Prize, a Fulbright Fellowship, and the College of Humanities and Fine Arts Outstanding Teacher Award. So please join me in welcoming Professor Harley Erdman.
Thank you, Barbara. That's very kind. I really love this STEM to STEAM thing. I'm inspired by it. And what a great day. Thank you for being here, all of you. It's a joy for me to be here with you. It's a really special day when we get to celebrate the arts and when we finally acknowledge the tremendous legacy of Doctors Randolph W. Bromery and Frederick Tillis, on whose shoulders we stand and whose spirit is still on this campus and within this building. Since their days, this building has been a place where hundreds and hundreds of brilliant faculty and brilliant students have poured their souls, their spirits, and their ingenuity into the necessary work of art making. As a theater faculty member right now, I can say this work has never been more important than it is right now. We have a generation of students, a new generation, hungry to make art after a pandemic, hungry to learn, and urgent with the challenges of a world that calls for greater racial justice, for greater equity, and for the need to live sustainably on the planet and to figure out the art forms that will help us make that world possible. Everyone understands, I think, how scientists need proper facilities to conduct experiments, to engage in research for the betterment of everyone. They need laboratories, they need materials and equipment. The same is equally true for artists. We need laboratories, we need rehearsal studios, we need shops and recital halls and rooms where faculty and students can spread out, can move, emote, dance, sing, paint, sculpt, play instruments, design costumes, create sets, and record sound. We need places to experiment. We need places to tell new kinds of stories that the world has never seen before. We need places that will help us push boundaries of form and imagine new kinds of beauty. You can't hear it always through the concrete of this building, and you can't see it due to the lack of windows in many parts of this building, but this amazing building, extraordinary building, is alive with the energy of this artistic creation every single day with our students and faculty, every single day of the academic year, and that includes late evenings and weekends as well. It's a 24/7 almost operation, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. So it is very fitting that at this very special moment when we also finally honor Bromery and Tillis, that we're also celebrating the grand opening of the newly renovated Arts Bridge. And for those of you who don't know, and I think most of you in this room probably know, but maybe not everyone knows, above our heads, roughly above our heads, there is a fourth floor of this building that is not readily apparent to the outside world. I'm going to take a guess and say it's the second longest hallway in the state of Massachusetts. We're surpassed only by the hallway in MIT. But ours is a lot more artistic, a lot more creative, and a lot more extraordinary. And that hallway is one of our campus's greatest gems. It is the Arts Bridge, newly reopened with 15 new studios, all with natural light from clerestory windows for the departments of art and music and theater. And the centerpieces that we're celebrating today are the Laura Bailey Costume Shop and the Julie C. Hayes and Claude Bersano Recording Studio. So I invite everyone here at the close of these ceremonies to go upstairs to the Arts Bridge. There'll be ushers to help you find your way up there, wander around, enjoy the exhibitions that we've created for this special day, and you'll learn a little more about the fabulous UMass people, Laura Bailey and Julie C. Hayes and Claude Bersano. Two of them are here today, whose names will be on those spaces. They are lovers of the arts who I've been lucky enough to know, and I give, on behalf of all the faculty in our departments, a huge thank you to those individuals. So I say, here's to the future of this building, here's to the future of the arts on campus, here's to the future of every UMass faculty member and student who will create the work in this building and around this building, create the work that we need now more than ever to survive and to thrive as a society, as a community, as a world. Thank you.
Thank you, Harley. I want to take an opportunity now to thank two supporters of the arts at UMass who are with us this afternoon. Rick Guimond, member of our Humanities and Fine Arts Dean's Advisory Council and a longtime donor to the Music and Dance Department, and Stephen Driscoll, a longtime donor to the Theater Department. Both have been dedicated patrons and supporters of the arts and the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, and we thank them for their generosity and friendship. I also want to take this time to highlight the many groups who have been involved in this building project. As Harley mentioned, we have a beautifully renovated space upstairs that took a lot of time and effort and thought and construction work. So I want to first acknowledge our facilities unit here on campus who oversaw the entire project. And then I'll quickly go through the list of all of the vendors and architects and everybody who made it possible. I also want to note that we're really quite pleased as a university that the following list that I'll read includes at least 6 women or minority-owned businesses. Ready? Adams Plumbing and Heating, Architectural Engineers, Bard, Rao and Athanas, City Point Partners, D.A. Sullivan and Sons, Design Lab Architects, Fernandez and Associates, Fisher Dax Associates. Oh, okay. I can still see in the dark though. We still have power, so it's a good, okay. The storm is not here yet. Lexington Group, there we go. ML Schmidt, thank you. Titan Roofing, Wassman AV Incorporated, Weatherby Design and Company Engineers, the UMass Building Authority, and here on campus, the Departments of Design and Construction Management, Campus Planning, Physical Plant, and Information Technology. We thank them all for their time and support. Now it's my real pleasure to introduce and welcome Carolyn Parker Fairbairn from Boston, Massachusetts. Carolyn is a UMass student graduating this spring with a major in Afro-American Studies. I'm going to start this again and I'm going to read slowly so you can pay attention. Carolyn is a student who's majoring in Afro-American Studies, minoring in theater and history, those are 2 minors, and getting a certificate in multicultural theater. I'm exhausted, but she's younger. At UMass, Carolyn focuses her attention and her talents on the intersections between Black studies and the arts. As a University Museum of Contemporary Art intern, she dedicated herself to expanding student engagement and building a more inclusive space for visitors to the museum. To this end, Carolyn performed extensive research, supported successful grant proposals, and co-hosted virtual events. She also founded the For Freedoms Student Organizing Committee to further encourage liberatory practices in the arts. Her UMass acting experience concluded with her performance in Visionary Futures, science fiction theater for social justice movements. So please join me in welcoming Carolyn Parker Fairbairn.
Hello, mask. Hello, and thank you. So, as you already know, my name is Carolyn Parker Fairbairn. I am a senior in the History, Theater, and Afro-American Studies departments, with my major being in the Du Bois department and all of the others within the humanities and fine arts. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and facilitator here, coming from a community of artists in Boston, my creative home. And as a young artist in the city, I learned the same lesson Harley spoke to that I want to uplift and elaborate on here. So much of my work and experience at the university is a part of the lineage of Fred Tillis and Randolph Bromery, grounded in Tillis's work in the arts and its transformative potential for individuals and communities. Though I have felt the impact of Tillis's legacy, I first spoke his name just a month ago. Now I know who I have been in dialogue with. Tillis saw the need to foster multicultural creativity on this campus and acted upon it throughout his time at the university. I too saw the same needs and moved to revitalize those spaces and conversations through the SIFE, a Black creative endeavor to bring artists into liberatory community in the historic Black space that is New Africa House, and through my work at the University Museum of Contemporary Art, just across from us, which I hope you'll visit, thinking about transformative practices in museum programming, and through the Anti-Racism Committee in the theater department with Harley, and through Bright Moments with Jamila. I think now about New World Theater, Roberta Uno's work activating space through performance and practice, and the Augusta Savage Gallery bringing visual artists into space. I think about how Tillis's work supporting these endeavors is still needed with renewed energy and historical grounding. I think about the revolutionary age of student action and communal creation that existed during these two men's time at the university, and reflect on how I participate in the continuation of this work by supporting spaces that forge connections between departments, organizations, and communities. This is the work of the arts, a center like this, and of a university. As Harley was saying, artists need space, not just to create, but to be still, to have the room to be creative and to build community, to ask each other the essential questions. Having dedicated spaces is essential to the growth of communities, just as the spaces in the Bromery Center for the Arts and the Tillis Arts Bridge are taking on renewed intention, so should the other creative spaces on our campus. Namely, the new Africa House, which now has only 50% of its original space dedicated to the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies, and the cultural centers on our campus, the Malcolm X Center, the Josephine White Eagle Center, the Latinx American Cultural Center, and the Yuri Kochiyama Cultural Center, whose historic gathering place, along with murals and memories, was demolished in the plans for the new Worcester Dining Commons. The renewed commitment to the arts should extend to these hubs and to the work of student organizers today who work to protect and revive these spaces. This is the legacy. We must build on it. More than a renaming, but a practice. Let the name remind everyone who passes through these doors of the intention. I look forward to the present and future, where the arts on this campus are a point of access, a portal, a bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Our last speaker, I'm really honored and humbled and pleased and delighted to be able to introduce our last speaker. Our last speaker is one of Dr. Randolph Bromery's children. Dennis Bromery retired in 2020 after more than 30 years with UMass Amherst. He works tirelessly to advance and promote the legacy of Dr. Bromery, both on our campus and in the larger community. Through close connection with the W.E.B. Du Bois Library, Dennis Bromery and his wife Linda have maintained a constant Bromery family presence on our campus. And I'm really so pleased to be able to introduce him and welcome him now. Dennis, where are you? There you are. Thank you.
Sorry, pages got reversed. Thank you and good afternoon. As I introduce the family members with me here today, I will include their UMass class years to emphasize the many close relationships we have with this flagship campus. I am a member of the class of 1986 and earned a master's degree in 1988. My wife, Linda Marston, is a class of 1975 and earned her PhD in 1989 here. My sister, Carol, is class of 1972 and is here with her husband, John Thompson. And my brother, David, is here, class of 1983. My brother, Chris, is here, a 1991 graduate of Westfield State College, where my father was acting president a few years earlier. Chris's guest is Mary Ann Yakuzo Holmes. My brother, Keith, class of 1972, could not be here today and sends his regards. Also with us today is a good friend, family friend, Jim Robertson, and his partner, Lim Pickens. Jim worked closely with my father at Springfield College when he was president there in the 1990s. During the time my father was chancellor at UMass Amherst, he actively sought many noted jazz musicians to come to campus, both as performers and, more importantly, to become faculty members. They already talked about Archie Shepp, Billy Taylor, and Mac Roach are other names that come to mind. My father deeply appreciated the depth and beauty of jazz. I remember many evenings after my father had meticulously prepared a dinner with, of course, a perfectly paired wine selection, listening to an extensive collection of CDs or to Jazz a la Mode or Jazz Safari on WFCR, our local public radio station, now New England Public Media. In closing, I want to mention that education, and especially equal access to education, were always extremely important to my father. Growing up, he had to attend segregated schools and later worked full-time to support his growing family while completing his college degrees. I know that Dr. Bromery would have appreciated having the Fine Arts Center renamed for him, particularly the most recognized center for education and arts at the university's flagship Amherst campus. On behalf of the Bromery family, I would especially like to thank Chancellor Subbaswamy, the University Board of Trustees, John Bracey, for their support in the Fine Arts Center being named for my father. We know there are many others who also worked to make this possible, and we greatly appreciate their efforts. Thanks for being with us today, and particularly those who traveled here from afar to join in this celebration. Welcome to the Bromery Center of the Arts.
Thank you, Dennis. If I could impose on you, could we please give the entire Bromery family another round of applause? So before we conclude this section of our events today, I'd like to invite the following people to join me on stage for a photograph. Pamela Tillis and Patricia Tillis. So I don't know, are they here? Is someone? There we go. So we're going to do the photo opportunity, and then I will invite you all to join us in the atrium where you entered the building for a special ribbon cutting where we'll officially dedicate the performance space to Dr. Tillis. And then we'll move upstairs to the Arts Bridge for the dedications of the Laura Bailey Costume Shop, the Julie C. Hayes and Claude Bersano Recording Studio. And I hope you'll take the time on your way between the atrium and upstairs to enjoy the various exhibitions, art displays, and performances in the atrium and in the Arts Bridge. And hope that you'll stay with us through the conclusion of our events. You're supposed to come join me, please. I know we're supposed to follow the instructions. Thank you all. So now I will invite you to join us in the atrium, I think. Is that where we're going next? Yes. I'm inviting you to join us in the atrium, please.